Hey, welcome to Get Serious. Today's topic going to be diving into banking relationships a bit more here. So I know who we utilize as a financial institution. A lot of folks will just kind of treat it as transactional as it gets, especially if you're working with a larger bank. But the more years that pass by as a business owner, like the more I realize, it's just another relationship to nurture and develop. And, the team who is managing your, uh, holding your actual funds, you should probably have a pretty close relationship with them, ideally, because they have full insight into your accounts, and the more that you knock on wood grow, the more opportunities there will probably be to take advantage of additional services when it comes to managing your business's finances. So my partner and I, we use Chase and been using them from the start. My partner has a separate business within single family rentals that, he had an established Chase relationship for several years prior to that. So it was an easy route to kind of build this separate business and still utilize a lot of the relationships that had already been started. And, within this industry, a lot of talk goes toward, well, if you're looking for cheaper debt financing, especially for possible subdivide projects, um, you'll want to develop a relationship with a regional bank over a period of years, and that certainly can be the case because Chase they're not going to provide financing for development projects that is a unless you're like very very large, but even then they're not as routinely underwriting even seven or mid eight figure projects. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong from that, but my understanding is that's not usually the case for some of these larger banks. So then it's always like, okay, yeah, develop relationship, regional bank, so you can get some of the cheaper finance to fund your various deals that you might be bringing with them. So that can certainly be the case there. But because we're not as often leveraging debt financing, it's generally equity, or we'll just pull from personal lines of credit as needed. Which is a pathway that was opened up through Chase in the first place, with some pretty intriguing products that we've utilized. So there's a lot more flexibility the more and more that I dive in and kind of keep in touch with our business relationship banker. Like I was just getting off a call earlier today because one of our core business checking account, I guess Chase Bank has a separate private bank, which is usually for some of their highest tier clients. Usually you need like 10 million within your Chase accounts, usually personally. Like it's not a lot of people can get that, and somehow one of my partners got access to that. I mean, it's based out in New York, and so our business account was under private bank, but the regular Chase services doesn't have access to that. And so the back end was just getting all messed up because I'm like, well, I want to link my accounts so that I'm not getting charged some wire fees for some of our other special purpose vehicle accounts. I'm throwing a lot of jargon at you, but just suffice to say, like there were other accounts within my overall Chase portal that I'm like, well, I shouldn't be getting charged wires for this. Because they should all be linked within like the primary services that I have for that core account. But because it was set up with a different branch within Chase, it's like, okay, we need to set up a whole nother one. So we were able to get that done. And so now that just makes it much more efficient from both the capital and just the Chase backend perspective of ensuring that we won't get charged any extra fees throughout our other accounts within Chase. And it also gave us the opportunity to get a new credit card set up for this new account that we just opened up. So, to me, one of the best perks for credit cards, and there's only a handful of them that do that, is the 0% APR for a whole year. Because if we can get a decent credit limit, like all of a sudden you can just run your cash conversion cycle doesn't need to be nearly as tight if you can just settle a ton of business expenses, yeah, with the understanding that you still have to have fiscal responsibility to eventually pay it off in a year. But if you don't have that monthly credit card bill piling up, then all of a sudden you can just stack a payment for a full year and potentially run a more aggressive business since your routine cash flow is not quite as important. Again, be very careful in terms of knowing, like, don't get too over leveraged to where you're not going to be able to pay off your credit card in a year and then face a sky high interest rates. So that should go without saying, but when you look at how many people are in credit card debt in this country, it bears worth reminding. So we had already used up that full year with the previous version of the credit card that we had, but because we just opened up this new account, it's like, okay, yeah. And it wasn't necessarily offered. It's just, you just got to get used to asking for things. Like I really have no shame, no guilt about just say, hey, what perks can you give me here? Like, can we get this credit card opened up? Been a customer a long time. We have a lot of liquidity within Chase. Can you hook me up with another year's worth of 0% APR? And so we were able to get that set up. No questions asked from that side. And in fact, an even better avenue, which I didn't even know to ask for, because I thought, okay, once one of these cards runs out, you're not going to get that perk anymore. But through my Land Pricer account, which, as I talked about before, I just threw a whole bunch of initial business expenses onto a 0% APR credit card with the expectation of running up revenue at some point in the future. And obviously things got delayed, but I haven't had to pay off that credit card balance up until, well, I still have like 2.5 months before I have to pay the main one in Chase. But my banker was also like, yeah, as soon as you pay that one off and that year goes up, like, just email me and I will update that credit card again to just give you another year of 0% APR. So it might even be something like every time that passes now, I'll just ask, hey, can we get another year here? So then you can just roll, basically make a balloon payment at the end if you're an established customer. And they're like, yeah, why not? They have the power to offer some of these services. And again, this is a large bank offering this. So to me, that's just such a huge advantage, because then it's less of a cash crunch. Again, really being mindful. Don't put yourself in a spot where you can't pay things off in a year. Like, have a slush fund or some investments that can cover that owed debt regardless of what happens. So, that has to be your key decision making. But that was an excellent service to throw on there. That's only going to help us. And then I hadn't heard of this before, but there's a sweep account. And I guess this isn't like routinely offered, to higher tier customers, all that type of stuff, but probably only takes a phone call. And I'm telling you guys here this now. But yeah, this sweep account, which, for accounts that you still want to maintain a lot of liquidity like us, I mean, we're funders, right? I want to be able to pull my cash, at any given day. If I want to do like a quick transactional deal, drop of a dime, here we go. What they can do within these sweep accounts is that after business hours, Ace will basically rehypothecate the cash within your account into some interest-bearing account overnight that pays roughly 5% interest in very low risk investments, T-bills, etc. And then by the time the next business day starts, you have your full liquidity back. So to me, there's like literally no downside. Like, as long as you believe in some of those low risk investment avenues, which is about as safe as it gets, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you want your liquidity earning an extra 5% overnight? It can make a decent difference, or at least try to keep up with inflation over the year. I wish I would have known about this years ago, but better late than never about this. It always comes down to like the cash drag situation, because ideally we have as much of our cash out of our account and into actual deals, which theoretically are earning more on an exit perspective than the equity preference we have built within our LLC agreement, which is higher than 5%. So, but it still earns us more than what we would be getting otherwise. So really cool feature. If you don't already have that set up, I would ask your banker about that, because there's very rarely like no-brainer type solutions like that, like real shortcuts to manage your funds a little bit better. So like I didn't even have to think twice about, okay, yeah, this is solid, like let's get this set up here. And we're going to have a final meeting for it. I don't believe there's any catch to it. I'll be sure to ask those various questions. I'll ask AI about it. But it seems like, okay, here's another way that we can just ease the damage of cash drag a bit more. And may as well take advantage of any possible avenue, especially in a more uncertain macro environment. So those are a couple of other learnings here. And again, just I know banking relationships, they get tossed aside very often, or it's usually the last thing on your plate. But the banker was just complimenting. He's like, hey, I appreciate how on top of things you are. The emails back and forth. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, you guys, you manage a lot of our money. Like I want to ensure that we're being efficient and smart about this. It is, even operating with a huge bank like Chase, it's still possible to develop more of a personal relationship with them, even more than you would think. So just wanted to share some more experience there. Hopefully that's helpful to you all. If you're looking for funding, seriousland.capital. I've got to jump into some reviews right after this. Land Daily Diligence Facebook group for zero cost review of your land deals, and landpricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. Subscribe and share. Take care, everybody. Bye.